The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as High Commander Vexarn of the Kelari Empire rose to speak. His forearms trembled slightly, something the other species had never seen from the proud warrior race. The Kelari were known throughout the galaxy as fierce fighters, their scales harder than most metals, their reflexes faster than light itself. Yet here stood their highest military leader, looking defeated. "We have lost another world," Vexarn said, his voice heavy with shame. "The Drek swarm consumed everything. Our armies fought bravely, but bravery means nothing against an enemy that cannot be stopped." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Representatives from 12 different species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Drek were a nightmare that had appeared from the void between galaxies just 3 cycles ago. They were not truly alive in any way the Council understood. They were machines, but not the kind any known species had created. They consumed everything organic and inorganic alike, using the matter to build more of themselves. They had no leaders to negotiate with, no worlds to threaten, no weaknesses anyone had found. "The Kelari are not alone in this failure," said Grand Admiral Teshka of the Vorn Collective. Her blue skin pulsed with the emotional patterns of her kind, showing deep purple marks of distress. "We sent our finest fleet to support your ground forces. 1,000,000 Vorn warriors in the best ships our engineers could design. Less than 2,000 returned." One by one, the other representatives shared similar stories. The Manthari had tried chemical weapons that could dissolve stone. The Drek had simply adapted and continued. The Silix had used gravitational weapons that could crush small moons. The Drek had learned to disperse and reform. The Grothan had attempted to hack into whatever system controlled the machines. They had found nothing to hack into, no central computer, no connected network. Each Drek unit was independent and single-minded in its purpose. "We are running out of options," said Council Prime Yalin, the ancient leader who had guided the Council through 3 wars already. "And we are running out of time. At current rates of expansion, the Drek will reach the core worlds within 2 cycles. That includes my homeworld. That includes all of your homeworlds." The chamber fell into despair. Some representatives began arguing about evacuation plans. Others suggested surrender, though no one knew if the Drek would even accept such a thing. A few simply sat in stunned silence, accepting what seemed to be the end of everything they knew. It was Ambassador Chen Wei who raised her hand. The human delegation was small, just 5 members seated at the far end of the chamber. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 8 cycles ago, after their first crude warp ships had stumbled into Kelari space. They were considered primitive by most standards. Their bodies were soft. They had no natural weapons. They lived short lives on a single world that was mostly water. Many council members had forgotten they were even present. "The council recognizes Earth's representative," said Council Prime Yalin, though her tone suggested she did not expect anything useful. Chen Wei stood. She was small even by human standards, with gray hair that showed her advancing years, but her eyes were sharp and her voice was steady. "I have listened to your reports," she said. "I have studied the data your military commanders have shared, and I believe humanity may be able to help." Laughter echoed through the chamber. High Commander Vexarn's scales shifted colors in what humans had learned was the Kelari expression of disbelief. "With respect, Ambassador," Vexarn said, "my warriors have trained for combat since hatching. Our military traditions span 10,000 cycles. Your species has been aware of life beyond your world for less than one of your human decades. What could you possibly teach us?" Chen Wei smiled, and something about that smile made several representatives uncomfortable. "We could teach you how to lose," she said. The laughter stopped. "I do not understand," said Grand Admiral Teshka. "Your species are all very impressive," Chen Wei continued. "The Kelari are stronger and faster than any human could hope to be. The Vorn are tactical geniuses with perfect coordination through your collective consciousness. The Manthari can survive environments that would kill us in seconds. Each of you has advantages that humans lack." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But you have all built your military strategies around those advantages. The Kelari charge directly into battle because they are usually tougher than whatever they face. The Vorn execute complex maneuvers because they can share thoughts instantly across thousands of units. The Manthari use overwhelming numbers because they can breed faster than any other species." "These are strengths," Vexarn said, his voice dangerous. "You speak as if they are weaknesses." "Against the Drek they are," Chen Wei replied. "The Drek are tougher than Kelari scales. They coordinate better than any collective link. They multiply faster than Manthari breeding pools could ever match. You have been fighting the Drek with strategies designed to exploit your strengths, but the Drek have all of your strengths and none of your weaknesses." Silence filled the chamber again, but this time it was thoughtful rather than despairing. "Humans have none of those advantages," Chen Wei said. "We are soft, slow, short-lived, and isolated in our own individual minds. Our planet tried to kill us constantly with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, diseases, and predators. We should have gone extinct 100 times over, but we did not. We survived. We adapted. We learned." "What did you learn?" asked Council Prime Yalin, leaning forward with interest for the first time. "We learned that when you cannot win through strength, you must win through other means. We learned to be cunning. We learned to be patient. We learned to sacrifice when sacrifice was necessary. We learned that victory does not always come from the battlefield, and that a war can be won even after losing every battle." Chen Wei activated her personal display unit, projecting images into the center of the chamber. Pictures appeared showing human history, though not the glorious victories most species would have shown. Instead, the images showed defeat, armies retreating, cities burning, people fleeing from enemies that outnumbered them hundreds to one. "These are from our own history," she explained. "This is Thermopylae, where 300 human warriors held an army of over 100,000 for 3 days. They all died, but they bought time for others to prepare. This is Stalingrad, where our soldiers fought in the ruins of a destroyed city for 6 months, losing millions but never surrendering. This is the Long March, where 80,000 soldiers walked nearly 10,000 kilometers through hostile territory, losing 90% of their forces but keeping their cause alive." The representatives stared at the images with confusion. Several turned to translators, trying to understand why humans would show such devastating losses. "You show us failure," Vexarn said. "How does this help us?" "Because in each of these cases, the side that suffered these terrible losses eventually won," Chen Wei said. "They lost the battles but won the wars. Humans are experts at losing and surviving. We are experts at adapting when our methods fail. We are experts at finding hope in hopeless situations." She looked around the chamber one more time. "Your warriors are the finest in the galaxy. They simply need to learn how to fight when all the odds are against them. They need to learn how to lose today so they can win tomorrow. We can teach them this. We can train them in the art of human warfare." Council Prime Yalin rose from her seat. "And what would humanity ask in return for such training?" Chen Wei's expression grew serious. "Only that you let us fight beside you. The Drek will eventually reach Earth. We have studied the projections. If the Council falls, humanity falls soon after. Our fates are linked, whether we like it or not. We offer our knowledge freely, in exchange for the chance to defend our home alongside new allies." The Council voted that night. The decision was not unanimous, but it was decisive enough. 3 days later, the first transport ships arrived at the human colony on Mars, carrying warriors from 7 different species. They were about to learn what it meant to fight like humans. General Marcus Stone stood on the observation deck of Camp Defiance, watching the alien warriors step off their transport ships. Behind him, his training staff studied data tablets containing everything they knew about each species. It was not much. Humanity had barely explored a fraction of their own solar system before the galaxy had come calling. "The Kelari contingent is first," said Colonel Sarah Park, standing at his side. 300 warriors, all veterans. Their commander is called Vortek. He has personally killed more enemies than our entire Marine Corps has throughout history. Stone nodded, watching the tall reptilian warriors march onto the landing pad. They moved with perfect precision, their scales catching the weak Martian sunlight. Each one carried weapons that could punch through tank armor. Their eyes swept across the human facilities with obvious doubt. And the others? 500 Vorn collective units arriving tomorrow, 200 Manthari day after that. The Silix sent a delegation of 50, mostly observers. The rest are still deciding whether this is worth their time. "It is worth their time," Stone said. "They just do not know it yet." He walked down to meet the Kelari as they finished unloading. Vortek was easy to identify, standing taller than the others with more elaborate markings on his scales. He looked at General Stone the way a wolf might look at a rabbit. "You are the human who will train us?" Vortek asked through his translator device. "I am." "You are small." "I am." "You have no claws, no natural armor, no venom or speed." "All true." Vortek made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Then what could you possibly teach Kelari warriors?" Stone smiled. It was the same smile Chen Wei had shown in the council chamber, the one that made people uncomfortable without knowing why. "Follow me," he said. "I want to show you something." He led Vortek and a group of Kelari officers to a training facility at the edge of the camp. Inside, a holographic display showed a battlefield reconstruction. Stone activated the playback. "This is a recording from the second Drek incursion," he said. "The attack on the Kelari colony of Thex 4. Your forces, Commander. I believe you were there." Vortek's scales shifted to darker colors. "I was. We lost 6,000 warriors that day." The hologram showed the battle unfolding. Kelari warriors charged at the Drek swarm, their weapons blazing. Their initial assault cut through hundreds of Drek units. For a moment it seemed like they would win. Then the Drek adapted. They changed their formation, their tactics. They targeted weak points in the Kelari line. Within an hour, the retreat became a rout. "Your warriors were brave," Stone said. "Your tactics were sound by any conventional measure, but you made one critical error." "What error?" Vortek demanded, his voice carrying an edge of anger. "You fought to win." The Kelari commander stared at him. "Of course we fought to win. That is the purpose of fighting." Stone shook his head. "Not always. Sometimes the purpose of fighting is to delay. Sometimes it is to gather information. Sometimes it is to make the enemy overconfident. Sometimes the purpose of fighting is simply to survive long enough for something else to happen." He switched the display to a different scenario, one the Kelari did not recognize. "This is a simulation my team designed. It shows what might have happened if your forces at Thex 4 had used a different approach. Watch." In the new simulation, the Kelari forces did not charge. They fell back immediately, drawing the Drek into narrow passages between buildings. They collapsed structures on top of Drek units. They retreated again and again, never fully engaging, always staying just out of reach. The Drek followed, spreading thinner and thinner to pursue. Then, at a critical moment, hidden explosives detonated throughout the colony. Not powerful enough to destroy the Drek, but enough to separate them into smaller groups. Kelari strike teams emerged from hidden positions, attacking these isolated groups before disappearing again. The process repeated, again and again. At the end of the simulation, the Kelari had lost nearly as many warriors as in the real battle. But the Drek had lost far more units. More importantly, the surviving Kelari had escaped with valuable data about Drek adaptation patterns. "This is your strategy?" Vortek asked. "To run and hide?" "This is one strategy," Stone replied. We have many others. The point is not any single tactic. The point is flexibility. The point is being willing to do whatever is necessary to achieve the ultimate objective, even if it means losing in the short term. He stepped closer to the Kalari commander, looking up at the warrior who stood nearly twice his height. Your warriors are magnificent, Commander, but they have never learned to fight while losing. They have never learned to embrace pain and defeat as tools to be used. Humans have been doing this for our entire existence. It is time we shared those lessons. Over the following weeks, Camp Defiance became the strangest military academy in galactic history. Human instructors worked with alien warriors who could kill them with a single blow. Language barriers caused constant confusion. Cultural differences led to arguments that nearly turned violent. But slowly, things began to change. The first breakthrough came with the Vorn collective units. Their linked consciousness made them perfect at coordinated maneuvers, but they had never considered fighting as individuals. When their collective link was jammed or disrupted, they became nearly useless. Colonel Park worked with them relentlessly, forcing them to operate in isolation chambers where their mental links could not function. At first, the Vorn panicked. Some simply shut down, unable to process existence as a single mind. But Park was patient. She sat with each struggling Vorn, teaching them the human concept of internal dialogue, of being a single voice in an empty room. "You are not less when you are alone," she told them. "You are simply different. Learn to fight as one, and when you reconnect with your collective, you will be more than you were before." By the third week, some Vorn units could operate independently for short periods. By the sixth week, they had developed new tactics that combined their collective coordination with moments of surprising individual action. The Kalari were harder to teach. Their pride made them resistant to any suggestion that their methods might be flawed. Vortek remained particularly stubborn, insisting that human tactics were simply cowardice dressed in clever words. General Stone tried a different approach with him. "Fight me," he said one day in the training arena. Vortek looked at the human in disbelief. "I would kill you before you could move." "Perhaps fight me anyway." The other warriors gathered to watch. Everyone expected the match to last seconds. Stone carried no weapons, wore no armor. Vortek could tear him apart with bare claws. The match began. Vortek lunged forward with his incredible speed. Stone was not there. He had moved before the attack even started, reading the tension in Vortek's muscles, anticipating the direction of the strike. Vortek attacked again and again, each time finding only empty air. Stone did not try to hit back. He did not need to. He simply kept moving, kept surviving, kept making the massive warrior waste energy on attacks that connected with nothing. After 10 minutes, Vortek was breathing hard. After 20, he was exhausted. After 30, he collapsed to one knee, unable to continue. Stone stood over him, barely winded. "I did not defeat you," the human said. "I simply outlasted you. I used your strength against you, made you spend energy I could never match. This is how humans have survived against every predator our world has produced. This is what we can teach you." Vortek looked up at him with new eyes. Something in the proud warrior had shifted. "Perhaps," the Kalari said slowly, "humans are not as weak as they appear." Stone offered him a hand. After a long moment, Vortek accepted it. The training continued, and the alien warriors began to transform into something new. News came from the front lines that changed everything. The Drek had attacked the Silic's homeworld, one of the most heavily defended planets in the galaxy. The Silics had deployed their gravitational weapons, the same weapons that could crush asteroids into powder. For 6 hours, they held the swarm at bay. Then the Drek adapted. The surviving reports were fragmented and terrifying. The machines had somehow learned to exist within gravitational distortions, using the crushing forces that should have destroyed them to propel themselves faster. The Silex military, which had never needed any other strategy, had no backup plan. Their world fell in less than a day. General Stone called an assembly of all the warriors at Camp Defiance. Representatives from each species stood together, watching the footage of the Silex defeat. No one spoke. The images were too horrible for words. "This is what we face," Stone said when the footage ended. "An enemy that learns from every encounter. An enemy that turns our greatest weapons into advantages for itself. An enemy that does not fear death because it does not understand what death means." He looked across the assembled warriors. Kelari stood beside Vorn, Manthari beside Grothin. Just weeks ago, some of these species had been rivals or enemies. Now they shared a common threat that made those old conflicts seem meaningless. "Some of you still doubt what we are teaching here," Stone continued. "Some of you think human tactics are for humans only, not for proud warriors with claws and fangs and ancient traditions. I understand that doubt. I would doubt it too in your position." He activated a new display, showing a map of the galaxy with the Drek Advance marked in red. The color had spread much farther than most of the warriors realized. Nearly a quarter of known space was already consumed or contested. But this is not about pride anymore. This is about survival. Every species here, including humanity, will die if we cannot find a way to defeat the Drek. All of our traditions, all of our histories, all of our futures will be erased as if they never existed. The machines do not care how brave we are. They do not care how many songs are sung about our fallen heroes. They only care about turning our matter into more of themselves. Stone stepped down from the speaking platform and walked among the warriors. Human military history is filled with moments like this. Moments where survival meant throwing away everything we thought we knew about combat. Moments where we had to become something new or cease to exist. We have faced extinction before, many times, and each time we found a way through. Not by being stronger than our enemies, but by being more adaptable, more willing to change, more stubborn about staying alive. He stopped in front of Vortek, who had become one of the most dedicated students after their fight in the arena. "Commander Vortek, when we first met, you asked what a small, soft human could teach Kelari warriors. Do you still ask that question?" Vortek's scales shifted to the color patterns that humans had learned to recognize as respect. "No, General. I have learned much from your people. We all have." "Good, because tomorrow you will begin teaching others. The Council has approved the expansion of our training program. New warriors are arriving from every member world. Within 6 months, we need to have an army ready to fight in ways the galaxy has never seen." A Vorn collective unit named Teshera spoke up. "General Stone, even if we train thousands of warriors in human tactics, how can we hope to stop the Drek? They are machines. They do not tire, do not fear, do not make mistakes." "Everyone makes mistakes," Stone replied. "Even machines. The Drek adapt because they have programming that responds to stimuli. That programming can be exploited. They learn from what we do, which means we can teach them wrong lessons. They calculate probabilities, which means we can act in ways they do not expect. They have no central command, which means they cannot coordinate across vast distances as effectively as beings who can actually think." He turned to address everyone again. "But you are right that we cannot stop them with our current numbers. That is not the goal of this training. The goal is to create warriors who can survive against the Drek long enough for humanity's other project to succeed." This was new information. The alien warriors exchanged confused looks. "What other project?" asked a Manthari officer named Chiltek. Stone smiled. It was a hard smile, one that did not quite reach his eyes. "That is classified for now. What you need to know is that your job is to buy time. Months if possible, weeks if not. Every day you keep the Drek engaged is another day for our scientists to finish their work. That is the human way of war. We fight not to win battles, but to win wars. Sometimes winning a war means losing every battle along the way." The warriors absorbed this. For most of them, it was a revolutionary concept. Their cultures had always celebrated victory in combat as the highest achievement. The idea that defeat could be purposeful, that retreat could be strategic, that survival could be more valuable than glory went against everything they had been taught. But they had seen the footage of Silic's Prime. They had read the reports from the front lines. They knew that their old ways of war had failed completely against this enemy. Perhaps it was time to try something new. Training intensified over the following months. Human instructors taught lessons that would have seemed insane to galactic military traditions just a year ago. They taught warriors to run from battles they could not win. They taught them to use terrain in ways that limited enemy advantages. They taught them to set traps, to create distractions, to sacrifice ground to preserve forces. Most importantly, they taught them to fight as a unified force. Colonel Park developed a series of exercises where mixed species teams had to accomplish objectives together. Kelari strength combined with Vorn coordination. Manthari numbers working alongside Grothan technical expertise. Species that had never trusted each other learned to rely on each other. The Drek are unified by programming, Park told her students. They act as one because they have no choice. You are unified by choice. That makes you more flexible, more unpredictable, more dangerous. General Stone personally oversaw the most advanced training, preparing elite units for the missions they would soon face. He pushed them harder than they had ever been pushed, making them fight through exhaustion, through pain, through situations that seemed impossible. The Drek will not give you fair fights, he told them. They will not wait while you catch your breath. They will not retreat when you show courage. They will keep coming, wave after wave, until either you are dead or they are. You must be ready to fight when every part of you is screaming to give up. That is when the real battle begins. One night, after a particularly brutal training session, Vortek found Stone alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "General," the Kalari said, "may I ask you something?" Stone nodded without turning around. "You speak often of human history, of battles where your kind faced impossible odds and somehow survived, but you never speak of what happens when humans lose completely, when there is no victory, even in death. Does this happen to your people?" Stone was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than Vortek had ever heard it. "All the time. History remembers the victories, the heroic last stands, the defeats that somehow led to future success. But for every story of survival, there are 1,000 stories that ended in simple, meaningless death. Villages destroyed by disease with no survivors to rebuild. Armies that marched into jungles and were never seen again. Peoples and cultures that vanished so completely that we do not even know their names." He finally turned to face the Kalari commander. "Humans are not special because we always win. We are not special because we never give up. We are special because we keep trying even though we know that giving up might be the smarter choice. Even though we know that our hope might be foolish. Even though we know that the universe does not care whether we live or die." "That sounds like madness," Vortek said. Stone laughed, a genuine laugh this time. "It probably is. Humans have never claimed to be sane, but we are alive, Vortek. After millions of years of trying to kill us, our planet failed. After thousands of years of trying to kill each other, we survived. And now, facing an enemy that has destroyed civilizations far greater than ours, we are still here, still fighting, still hopping." He put a hand on the Kalari's arm, a gesture of connection between species that should have had nothing in common. "That is what we are teaching you. Not tactics, not strategies, not tricks. We are teaching you how to be stubborn in the face of impossibility, how to keep fighting when fighting makes no sense, how to survive until surviving leads to victory." Vortek considered this. In his culture, such obstinate refusal to accept reality would be considered a weakness. But here, standing on this strange little world orbiting a yellow star in an unremarkable part of the galaxy. It seemed like the greatest strength he had ever encountered. "I think I am beginning to understand," he said. Stone nodded. "Good, because we are running out of time. The Drek will be here within 2 months, and when they come, you will need every lesson we have taught you." The Kelari looked up at the stars, imagining the swarm spreading through the darkness, consuming everything in its path. "We will be ready," he said. Stone hoped that was true. Everything depended on it. The day came faster than anyone expected. Early warning systems detected the Drek fleet emerging from Fold space just beyond the asteroid belt. The swarm was larger than anything previously recorded, millions of individual units moving with terrible purpose toward the inner system. They had bypassed the outer colony defenses, seemingly uninterested in small targets when larger prey waited ahead. Mars was in their path. General Stone stood in the command center of Camp Defiance, surrounded by officers from a dozen species. The training program had produced remarkable results, but they had always known they would be outnumbered. Now, seeing the actual scale of the approaching threat, that knowledge became terrifyingly real. "All units to battle stations," he ordered. "Execute Defense Plan Omega, and someone get me a line to Earth." The channel opened, and a familiar face appeared on screen. Admiral Chen Wei, the same diplomat who had addressed the council months ago, now wore a military uniform. She had taken command of Earth's defenses after the Galactic Council formally recognized human tactical authority in the war. "We see them, Marcus," she said. "The main fleet is 30 hours behind you. We're mobilizing everything we have." 30 hours is too long," Stone replied. "They'll reach Mars in 12. We'll have to hold them until you arrive." Chen Wei's expression was unreadable. "The project is not finished. Our scientists need more time." "Then we will buy them time. That is what we trained for." The Admiral nodded slowly. "The Council fleet is already en route. Vortex Kelari forces will hit them from behind once they engage your position. The Vorn Collective is coordinating strike patterns across the entire battle space. If anyone can slow them down, it is your people." "My people are not all human anymore," Stone said. "That is why we might actually have a chance." He closed the channel and turned to his command staff. Kelari, Vorn, Manthari, Grothan, and humans stood together, waiting for orders. "You have all seen the projections," Stone said. "We are outnumbered approximately 1,000 to 1. By any normal calculation, we should be dead within the hour of engagement. But we are not fighting a normal battle. We are fighting to survive. We are fighting to delay. We are fighting so that others might win even if we fall." He activated the tactical display, showing the defensive positions his forces had prepared. "The Drek will expect us to either run or fight in conventional formations. We will do neither. We will let them think they are winning, draw them deeper into our kill zones, and bleed them for every inch they advance. When they adapt, we change tactics. When they counter our changes, we change again. We make this fight so expensive that even machines start to hesitate." Vortex stepped forward. "General, I have fought the Drek before. They do not hesitate, they do not count costs, they simply consume." "Then we make them consume poison," Stone replied. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we lose takes some of them with it. And when we fall in ways that serve our allies, crashing ships into their largest concentrations, overloading reactors in their midst, turning our deaths into weapons." He looked at the alien warriors who had become his students, his allies, his friends. "I will not lie to you. Many of us will die today. Some of us will die badly, but our deaths will have meaning. Our sacrifice will buy time for the project to complete, and when it does, the Drek will face something they have never encountered before." "What is this project?" asked Teshera, the Vorn Collective representative. "You have spoken of it but never explained." Stone smiled. It was the smile of a man who had accepted what was coming and found peace with it. We have been studying the Drek since they first appeared, learning everything we could about how they function, and we discovered something interesting. They adapt by incorporating information from what they consume. Every ship they destroy, every warrior they kill, they absorb and learn from. "We know this," said Chiltek. "It is why they become stronger with every battle." "Yes, but what if we gave them something to absorb that was designed to destroy them from within?" Understanding dawned on the alien faces. "A weapon," Vortex said, "hidden inside something they would consume." "Not just a weapon, a virus. A piece of programming designed to look like normal data until it spreads through their entire network. The Drek have no central command, but they do share information when they connect with each other. Our virus would spread the same way, jumping from unit to unit until it infected the entire swarm. And then we give them a simple command: stop. The command center fell silent as the implications became clear. "This is why we needed time," Stone continued. "The virus is complex. It has to be undetectable, or they will simply adapt and purge it. Our scientists have been working on it since the first Drek unit was captured, but they need more weeks to perfect it. Every hour we survive gives them another chance to get it right." Teshera's collective consciousness pulsed with what humans had learned to recognize as hope. "If this works, we win. If this works, everyone who survives wins. Everyone who dies before it works buys victory for those who come after. That is the human way. That is what we have been teaching you all along." The first Drek units entered weapons range 6 hours later. The battle for Mars had begun. Stone's forces fought exactly as they had been trained. They did not try to stop the Drek advance. Instead, they guided it, channeled it, made the machines pay for every kilometer of progress. Hidden batteries opened fire from unexpected angles. Decoy signals drew Drek units into ambush zones. When the main assault came, the defenders were already falling back to prepared positions. The Drek adapted, as they always did. They identified the decoys and ignored them. They developed countermeasures for the ambush tactics. They calculated the most efficient paths through the defense grid and executed with perfect precision. But the defenders adapted too. For the first time in the war, the Drek faced an enemy that changed as fast as they did. When their counters succeeded, new tactics appeared. When they calculated probabilities, the defenders did something unexpected. When they tried to overwhelm through numbers, the defenders fell back, trading space for time. The battle raged for hours. Casualties on both sides mounted. But where the Drek simply replaced their losses with new units built from consumed matter, the defenders fought on with dwindling resources, somehow always managing to stay one step ahead of complete collapse. Vortek led his Kelari warriors in a series of strikes that cut deep into the Drek formation. He no longer charged blindly into battle. Instead, he waited, watched, and struck only when the moment was perfect. His warriors died, but they died efficiently, taking far more Drek with them than should have been possible. Teshera coordinated the Vorn defense grid, but she also fought independently when needed, making decisions without waiting for collective consensus. The combination of unified strategy and individual initiative confused the Drek algorithms, creating gaps that other forces exploited. Chiltek and the Manthari forces turned their numerical disadvantage into mobility, appearing at different points along the line so frequently that Drek sensors could not accurately count them. The machines allocated resources to fight armies that were not there while underestimating forces that were. And through it all, General Stone directed the battle from his command center, moving forces with a chess master's precision, always thinking 3 moves ahead, always keeping the war going just a little bit longer. 12 hours into the battle, reinforcements arrived. Vortek's main Kelari fleet hit the Drek rear, drawing millions of units away from the Mars assault. The Vorn collective fleet emerged from fold space and began coordinated strikes across the entire battle space. Even the Silix survivors, burning with rage over their lost homeworld, joined the fight with whatever ships they had managed to salvage. The Drek should still have won. Their numbers were simply too great, but the battle had changed something fundamental. The galactic forces were no longer fighting as separate species with separate goals. They were fighting together, supporting each other, adapting together. They were fighting like humans. 28 hours into the battle, just as the defense lines were finally beginning to crack, a message came from Earth. "The project is complete," Chenwei announced. "Transmitting the virus package now. All forces prepare for final phase." Stone felt exhaustion weighing on him. He had not slept in days. Around him, his staff was in similar condition, running on nothing but determination and caffeine. But they had done it. They had held long enough. "All units," he broadcast across every channel, "initiate Operation Trojan Horse. Ram priority targets. Maximum sacrifice protocol authorized." What followed was the most coordinated suicide attack in military history. Damaged ships that should have retreated instead accelerated toward the largest Drek concentrations. Warriors carrying explosive charges charged into the heart of enemy formations. Orbital stations that had been evacuated days ago detonated their reactors. And hidden within the debris, within the consumed matter, within every piece of the defenders that the Drek absorbed, the virus waited. It spread faster than anyone had predicted. The Drek, eager to incorporate the technology and biological data of so many species, consumed everything the defenders offered. Within minutes, the virus had infected millions of units. Within hours, billions. General Stone watched the tactical display as the red symbols began to slow, then stop, then, impossibly, begin to retreat. "It's working," someone whispered. "By all the gods of every world, it's working." The Drek pulled back from Mars. They pulled back from every front across the galaxy. Reports came flooding in from every theater of the war. The machines were stopping, going dormant, in some cases simply falling apart as their programming became confused. The war was not over. Billions of Drek units still existed, and no one knew how long the virus would keep them suppressed. But for the first time since the nightmare began, the galaxy had hope. Stone sat down heavily in his command chair. Around him, officers of a dozen species were hugging, crying, roaring in triumph. Kelari scales flashed with colors of joy. Vorn consciousness pulsed with shared relief. Manthari chittered in what might have been prayers of thanks. Vortek approached him, the massive Kelari warrior looking almost small in the moment. "General Stone," he said, "we would not have survived without you, without your people, without the lessons you taught us." Stone looked up at his friend and smiled, too tired for words. "We survived together," he finally managed. "That is the only way anyone survives, together." In the months that followed, the galaxy began to rebuild. The Drek remained dormant, though scientists continued to monitor them closely and prepare for the possibility that they might eventually overcome the virus. Military forces from every species maintained their new training, ready to fight again if needed. But more importantly, the war had changed how the galaxy thought about humanity. The soft, short-lived creatures from the water-covered world at the edge of civilized space were no longer seen as primitive or weak. They were seen as survivors, teachers, allies worth having. General Marcus Stone returned to Earth as a hero, though he would never have used that word for himself. He had simply done what humans had always done, fought to survive, adapted when needed, and refused to give up even when giving up made sense. That was the human way. And now, thanks to the warriors who had learned from humanity, it was the galactic way too.